Alright, hello everybody. TGR, Scarlet Division Week 0 Power Ranking. I will caveat this by saying at the time, pretty much all of the Week 1 games have been played, but we are not taking any of that into account for the purpose of these Power Rankings. So these are the teams as they were after the initial draft and grace period had finished. With me are two very awesome co-hosts. They probably sound very familiar. Why don't you guys say hi?
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, I have hijacked the people who did the Violet Division PRs for another roundabout. For Pat, his own division, and for Ted's just moral support. So, why don't we get started? Let's make sure the audio is alright. So, just some brief ranking criteria. Teams are in draft order. I did not rank them from 12 to 1 because in true TGR fashion, we don't really do too many big 12 to 1 ranking teams or full power rankings here. We like to do a breakdown of each team and then have like a top 5. However, I have highlighted my favorite parts of each draft in red. And if you think you should be in my top 5, leave a comment while you're at it. We would appreciate a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. So yeah, let's start with the first pick of the draft went to Niels, coach of the Scuba Squirtles, and I'll hand this off to Ted. What do you think of this team?
Okay, so one of the first things I noticed is that this team is very, very heavily trick room orientated. Their fastest Pokemon, or their two fastest Pokemon, is Azelf and Sneasler. They have a really strong Fire, Water, Grass core, and 2 water types, and Volcanion counts as a fire type, so really strong. I think good fire and water type. And then their Trick Room mode is really strong as well. Klefki gets Trick Room, but it's still a negative priority move even with Prankster, so you're probably going to looking to see Calyrex setting up that Trick Room, and having redirection with the Moongus is nice bulky grass type. Setting up their Spore, having Rage Powder is nice as well, so some good useful tools for this team. And Galarian Moltres, the only thing I can say about that Pokemon is really annoying. Behind the screens, it can be super bulky. It's going to be hard to kill, and with Citrus Berry, you can just keep resetting Berserk and stacking up those special attack boosts, and it's just going to do a lot of damage over time. So overall, really strong attackers, special attackers, and some good defensive cores. So overall, really strong Trick Room team.
What are you thinking, Pat?
Oh yeah, I agree with a lot of what Ted said. Like, there's one thing that I don't like about the team as much is there's a lot of overlap in terms of typings. Like, we have double darks, double waters, double grass, things like that. And it just means that, like, when you're prepping against the team, you can bring a lot of the same move and it'll hit 2 or 3 different Pokemon pretty easily. So that's probably my biggest concern about the team, but I agree that it looks very Trick Room oriented. We have the 2 Pokemon that it looks like are circled here with Calyrex and Klefki, and those obviously make a very good combo. You can set up screens in Trick Room. You could Trick Room in like Sword Stance. There's a lot of different options there. And I think it's also, I kind of like the Florges pick quite a bit. We didn't mention that one, but just being able to use its, I forget the name of the ability, but it helps out grass types basically, right? And so being able to turn something into a grass type on this team with Terra and then support it makes it a little bit more difficult to prep for and gives this team another mode, another angle to how it plays, which I like. But I would say that, like, if I were to adjust the team, I'd probably look at like kind of diversifying types a little bit. Like, there's a handful of types that are just really good against the team, Electric being the most obvious one because there's no ground type. But like, those are just things that are like probably more nitpicky than anything. And the team obviously has the power. Like, it's got fast modes, it's got slow modes. So yeah, I think it's a pretty cool team.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what both of you said. I did circle the Klefki and the Calyrex as two of my favorite Pokemon on this team because I agree that defeating Ice Rider behind screens in some ways can be like a doomed errand if you just don't have enough damage, and then it slowly starts scaling with the Chilling Neigh and the fact that Glacial Lance is a spread move, so like you could just be literally fighting an uphill battle from the jump. It also is a tricky lead combination because you don't necessarily know which one wants to set Trick Room. And there's even potential for Calyrex Ice Rider to go in a fast mode and have Klefki do like speed control with it via Thunder Wave thanks to Prankster. So a lot of different options for those two, and I agree with you that the type diversity is something I would also like to see. One thing we didn't really talk too much about is that Sneasler Plague. It does have the Unburden ability, which is, you can double your speed if you have like terrain boosted with a seed, and like there's some light synergy there with the Klefki, but maybe I would like to see something a little bit more forward for that, since that's kind of like their whole fast mode is kind of like locked into that Sneasler and that Azelf, outside of like maybe like 2 Tailwind setters, but they're not like the fastest. Alright, any final thoughts before we move on to team number 2?
Let's go take a look at it.
Alright.
Yep.
Next team, I believe this is the Flanders Flygon, which is coached by Ronan Sting. I'm going to pass this one off to Patmac to start.
Oh, well, like, very clearly Sun Mode team. Like, it's so obvious. Like, that first pick Groudon, we got the Scoville, we got a Photosynthesis Roaring Moon, we got Charizard, like, we got Sun. And I actually really like the different modes that are here. I think Rotom Wash is an amazing Pokemon on Sun teams. Just being able to combo this with Groudon, I think, is really nice as well. Like, you just get a ton of damage output. There's that Disquake mode if you want to do that. Even though Groudon does have Precipice Blaze, sometimes it's nice to have the 100% accurate Earthquake going on. So I really like Rotom on Sun teams, just because we also tend to hit fire type or grass types really, really well. And like Photosynthesis Roaring Moon, if you tear that into flying, obviously boost energy acrobatics, that kind of stuff can be really strong. So overall, I think the team has a ton of different power options. And I also like Mewtwo on the team. It gives a little bit of diversity to the damage typing here. So we get a really strong special attacker, and with Side Strike, we can hit on that Fizzle side. So you combo that with like Goldango, Roaring Moon, stuff like that. Really strong special attacker that can hit on both physical and special defenses. So it just gives the team a lot of power. I also like the Sneasel pick here. I think that Hitmon is really nice. Like having that fake out option, having like fake tiers to support some of these special attacks is really solid. And then the team, as fast as it is, isn't really that weak to Trick Room. Sylveon, I think, is a really bulky Pokemon that can work fairly well in Trick Room. So while this team isn't really trying to set it, if teams try to bring Trick Room against this team, like they're still going to have a hard time. And I think that the Flanders Flygons are going to be able to handle that mode pretty well. I would say that it would be maybe nice to have maybe one more kind of Trick Room answer. But with the amount of just general bulk on the team, I could see them just deciding to keep the team as is, and I think it would work pretty well. But yeah, I like the team overall. I think it's got a lot of damage output, a lot of power, and definitely something you got to be scared of.
All right, I'll pass it over to you, Ted.
Yeah, I think Pat covered the majority of what I would have said. I think that they have everything to cover the trick room weakness, we could say, and those bulky Pokemon like Sylveon and Rotom. But their fast mode, like with Groudon, Roaring Moon, Goldango, Mewtwo, are really strong options. And if they do come across like a bulky team, like Gudra, Sui, or Ursaluna, or mons like that are behind screens are going to deal with, Goldango can work around that with like Trick Scarf or Trick Choice Specs, get rid of like Flame Art from Ursaluna or leftovers from Gudra, Sui. So some good overall options to deal with that. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about the team. I think Pat covered a good majority of it.
I can agree. It is very much a Sun-centric team. I'll just talk mostly about the two mons that I thought were my favorite. I really like the Goldango Roaring Moon pairing. I think they cover each other's weaknesses quite well. I believe near perfect, if not exactly perfect. And they also hit very hard on either side of the offensive spectrum. I think that is a wonderful pairing that this team can abuse because, as Pat mentioned earlier, the team does not want to necessarily play in Trick Room, but it definitely has the tools to go that route if they need be. And one of the things about bulky mons is that because they have such some natural good stats in their bulk, you can afford to pump up a lot of their EVs and their speed, so they can hit some really deceptively strong speed numbers depending on what your other speed control is, such as like Tailwind from Roaring Moon or Icy Wind from Sneasel. I also really like the Mewtwo pick just on the blanket surface because it has Unnerve, and as much as that can be seen as like a relatively like, I would say on average, it's like kind of a lackluster ability to the average coach. Uh, Trying to use berries to live some of these heavy hits, like Make It Rain, Steel, Precipice Plates, Ground, Hyper Voice, Fairy, like Mewtwo just says, nah, you gotta try again, man. So, yeah, really well crafted team. And yeah, any other wrap up fuss before we move on to team number 3?
Nope.
Alright. Third team of the day, Colorado Rockslides. I believe this is coached by Edward Meyer. So we have, I'll start this one. So we have Miraidon and Alolan Raichu as my two favorite parts of this team because that is just fast. Like, you get the Surge Surfer off with Miraidon's ability to send electric terrain, like you're just zooming, and you're doing a lot of damage while you're zooming at the same time. Raichu's probably one of my favorite electric mons. It has a very wide support move pool with tools like Fake Out, Encore, Nuzzle, Feints, Helping Hand, Dual Screens, as well as a very good offensive move pool on both sides of the spectrum, attack and special attack. I don't remember what Alolan Raichu's offensive stat changes are off the top of my head, but I know it can hit pretty decently hard, especially with terrain up. And then the rest of the team is just kind of like trying to round out like that electric terrain pairing. He got the Iron Treads that can also benefit from the terrain. Skeletor is kind of like an anti-setup. He's got the Water Urshifu, Rabishike, which basically blow holes in ground types that try to pivot against this team, as 4 of the mons I've already mentioned are quite weak to ground. And then he also kind of wraps it up with having a nice solid couple of ground resist and Enamorus and Sarina, which also block priority and some intimidate and stat lowering. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts? We'll start with Ted.
Yeah, I can definitely see that this team is really fast. I was a big fan of Alolan Raichu in Gen 7. Not sure how well it would do in this high-powered format, but I think with Terra it would do decently well, like a Terra Fairy or Terra Dark. Just to get a few immunities off, or even Terra Flying as well to avoid ground type moves. So there are several ways to deal with that. And like you mentioned, like Urshifu just blows holes into a lot of teams, and especially like into ground types that this team would definitely struggle with if Urshifu wasn't on here. So I think that's something that's going to be a key piece for this team. And not just Alolan Raichu, like Iron Treads, again, gets that boost either in attack or any other stat that's higher than its attack stat. With a Quark Drive is going to be nice as well. Can hit decently hard, has lots of good stab options. Yeah, definitely something that's going to be coming up next to Alolan Raichu. The double prankster is a little bit interesting. There's nothing really good paired up with Doodle, Grafai, but I don't think that's probably going to be something that's coming. You probably would see mostly like Parting Shot, Switcheroo, stuff like that. Good supporting options to lower the opponent's attack or special attack. And then like Murkrow setting up that priority Tailwind is going to be nice if you need to outspeed certain Pokemon from the other side. So yeah, I really like the diversity. I love the other options that the starting Pokemon have for this team next to Raichu and the Miraidon. So yeah, we'll see what happens during the season.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and hop in here as well. So I think one of the things that's been happening in the server has been a little bit discussion by the coach here about potential changes to the team, and I think that I don't know. There's been quite a bit of discussion. It's really difficult to decide if there should be any changes and how you'd make any changes if you'd like to. I think my personal opinion would be that I think that Murkrow would probably be a mon I'd consider dropping on the team. Cloth potentially as well. That mon just I don't know how much of it has a home in kind of VGC. Difficult mon to kind of work out just because it doesn't have too much priority. Not really that quick. Not really that bulky. So it's kind of a little bit difficult to try to make it work. But I really like the speed control that the options they have with the Alolan Raichu and with the Grafaiai. Just with like being that unburdened mode, and not to mention just the natural speed on the team. So I kind of think that they don't necessarily need priority Tailwind. I think that they'd probably be fine without it. And so I think that Murkrow would probably be the mon that I'd consider switching out on the team if I were to make any changes on it. Just because I think they have some other fast speed control options they can go with, and you could probably look at getting something to add some more power to the team. Because I think as it is right now, there's probably like 3 or 4 main attackers that you could say on the team between Miraidon, Urshifu, and Anemoris. And then you could add in that like Iron Treads and Skeledirge can deal some damage, but they tend to need a little bit more ramping up to do. And Iron Tread doesn't always hit quite as hard as you need it to. So I'd almost like to see them switch that out for like a heavier damage dealer and let those other mons do some of that speed control.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with those points. It's so funny because like in a vacuum between Murkrow and Grafaiai, this team's 2 Prankster mons, I probably would just pick Murkrow like just all day. But on this team, it is actually ironic that I think Grafaiai makes a better Prankster with its toolkit than because like this team doesn't really like need Tailwind, not specifically Pulsar Tailwind when it already has such a strong fast mode pairing that is essentially set the turn that these mons are both led out onto the field. So that's I thought that was also very interesting. And yeah, Cloth is Cloth. I don't know nothing about it. I beat it as a Titan in the main story, and I just kind of forgot about it since.
Yeah, and like there's a reason that Murkrow would be chosen more often over Grafaiai. And there's a difference in the point value, right? When we take a look at the doc. So I think in general, most teams would want to have Murkrow in general. And I think if you don't have the terrain option with Grafaiai, then I would say keep Murkrow, right? Because like Ted mentioned that none of these mons really want to lose their ability. Like the abilities on pretty much every mon here is like really good. And so you want to keep the ability. So Doodle is like very, very rarely going to come up for this team. But I think that what's nice is that you do have that unburdened option with Grafaiai. You can use that Electric Seed, get that speed boost, and then you can look for different ways of getting speed control that way. Maybe you look for Knockoff to disrupt, you look for Encore to disrupt, maybe use Super Fang, stuff like that, you know, as different ways to disrupt the opposing team without using Tailwind as your form of speed control. So maybe there's an option to like maybe switch out Murkrow for something that could benefit from Doodle, but I just don't think it's super necessary to do that.
That's so funny. I actually kind of forgot about Grafaiai actually getting a burden. That is a really nice. That's a nice tech I didn't even consider with the whole electric terrain mode because Raichu doesn't need the seed or anything else. I'll be curious to see what they decide to do in terms of their trades going into future weeks. You guys ready to move on?
Yeah.
Yep.
Alright. Theme number 4. I'm sure this logo looks familiar to many of the viewers of the channel. It is Red Pudding Official and the Toronto Tinkatinks. I will let Ted start this one off.
Okay, Brad, I'm going to convey my message right here through the video. I'm gonna have to say this from the start. Speak is trash. Drop it, please. All right, now that the official announcement has been said, Kyogre is really, really strong on this team. I really like it. I like it with the pair up with Kudra Sui. Both of those Pokemon are really strong. Gudra getting this convergent evolution in Hisui is really good, especially for its defensive stat. Like you don't even need double screens behind it. It's just super bulky. So I really like it on this team as well. Priority Tailwind is nice. Talonflame, big fan of it. Was a big fan of it in Gen 6. Still a big fan of it here. So yeah, having Priority Tailwind first turn is nice. Although you don't really need it, it's still appreciated here. Urshifu Single Strike. Again, just like the Surging Strikes form, can punch holes through teams. Wicked Blow is super strong. Pair that up with the Choice Band, is just going to do a lot of damage. Zacian Crown, or not Zacian Crown, Zacian Hero, doesn't have the it's not the Crown form, but it's still getting that +1 in attack. That first turn it comes out, so that's still going to be pretty useful. Slap on a Choice Band to increase its attack, and it's just like Urshifu is going to be punching holes through teams. I see that you Mismag circled both Grumpig and the Arbalova. Arbalova, I've used it a couple times. I like Seed Sower, but Harvest is a really good ability as well. I think that Stall is definitely viable here, with Leech Seed and Citrus Berry, and just continually regaining HP, no matter how much damage you take. And in addition with Giga Drain is going to be really nice as well. And pair that up with like a Terra like Water, or just having a stab a Terra Normal with Hyper Voice is going to be really nice as well. And like the other supporting pieces with Quillfish, Hisui, and Raichu, like Fake Out is obviously really good. Lightning Rod to redirect those electric attacks from Kyogre is going to be really nice. And those are really common pairing in Gen 8, so excited to see that return as well. And moving forward to Quillfish, Hisui, like Intimidate is always good to have. Barbarage, being able to have the chance to poison is nice as well. So various good supporting pieces and good attackers in Kyogre and Urshifu. So yeah, overall I think it's a really solid team. I could definitely see this team in playoffs. So yeah.
Alright, I think I'll jump in now. Yes, I did circle the Arbaleva and the Grumpig. There's so many other mons here to talk about, but I think those two are going to be a very nice duo. Not only does Grumpig set the Trick Room so that Arbaleva can sweep or do a whole bunch of other things by moving first, it also has Thick Fat, which means it naturally has a resistance to two of Arbaleva's weaknesses, whereas Arbaleva is also providing a immunity to one of Grumpig's with the normal typing against Ghost moves. So I just think it's just a really good match made kind of in heaven. Like, they're very good, decent special attackers for sure, and they can just provide a lot of rules for this team's heavier hitters. Obviously, Arbaleva can hit plenty hard itself with, I believe, base 125 attack under Trick Room or in the appropriate speed control. But yes, it does kind of go without saying that like Kyogre is pretty freaking broken. Like, it's just obnoxious. And this team that Brett has put together does support it well. You got the Lightning Rod for it and for Talonflame. You got Urshifu and Talonflame for folks to have to worry about, just straight up punching through your protects. And then you just kind of round it out with like base Asian, sure, no steel type, but you get nice item flexibility, and you still get the +1 attack boost on a pure fairy type mon. And then Hisui and Gudra is just a menace, honestly. I won't bother talking about the Speedfoot pick. I think it's kind of been said. Like, it's alright. I don't necessarily think it sucks. I think it has its place. I don't think it'll be coming to that many matches, but I'm sure Patmac can tell us a little bit more about that. Can't you, Patmac?
Oh, for sure. Well, first off, let me just talk about another season that Brett played in our Restricted or Mythical Mayhem League. And in that team, he had Kyogre first pick, Urshifu Single Strike second pick, and he had Crobat third pick. As you can see, Brett just doesn't have any original ideas and has to copy his old game plan. He also had Raichu on that team. He had Tangela, so he had a low tier redirection. He had This one's a little bit different because he doesn't quite have the same kind of Swift Swim Sweeper. This time he has Hisuian Quillfish. Last time he had Kingdra. He had a slow Steel Trick Room Mon and a Scavalier. This time he's got Hisuian Gudra. He had a Trick Room Setter in Musharna. This time he's got Grumpig. And he had a slow Trick Room Attacker in Trevenant. And this time he has Arboliva. He also had, he had Toracat last time, so he had a low tier Intimidator. This time he's got Hisuian Quillfish. And last time he just had a strong attacking Fairy type in Gardevoir, and this time he's got Zacian. So basically what I'm trying to say is that Brett has no original ideas. He's just trying to copy his own game plan. And we'll see if it can work out for him this time. But yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I think that's valid.
He did.
Yeah. Okay, so he's literally just copying a winning game plan. None of us.
Hold up. I wrote something in our Mythical Mayhem chat, and then we can finish off this team.
No,
Let's see.
boy.
What did I type? Oh yeah. So, and next we have one of our previous champions, Brett Official Pudding. He's drafted a really solid first 3 picks with a Kyogre, Urshifu Single Strike, and Talonflame in an attempt to recreate his championship team. Oh, what's that you see? He's picked round 4 Spupa? Yeah, I don't know either, man. I thought I'd be able to show you how to champion drafts, but I can't condone this. Lasted PRs. Let's move on.
I
would
mean,
100% agree.
I guess we gotta move on after that. But hey, if you are watching this video and you support Spupa Supremacy, like Bread Pudding Official, please drop a comment down below. Also hit that like and subscribe button. #free plug. Let's move on to team number 5, which is the something shiny. I think I'll start this one off. So my 2 favorite picks on this team are the Screamtail and the Mousehold, and I'm gonna tell you why. First off, Mousehold in draft is just such a great flexible piece. Like, it can do support, it can just absolutely obliterate things with Population Bomb. Like, it has enough juice on either end of the spectrum, like attacking or supporting roles, to do a lot of things, which makes prepping versus it very hard. It also gets Friend Guard, which just naturally adds bulk to this not terribly frail team, but it pairs really nicely with Screamtail, because Screamtail also has a really strong supportive move pool, and it also has a fast speed tier at base 111, which can get further boosted by booster energy. Yeah, no, that pairing is disgusting. Like, there's just so many obnoxious things you can do. You can do Follow Me Trick Room, you can do Helping Hand Population Bomb. Like, Screamtail's got a whole Disable Encore package that Mousehold can very willingly support, being that it also gets Encore. It's gross. And then, like, if that wasn't bad enough, you actually have to still worry about, like, Calyrex, Shadow, and Chi not blowing holes in your team. It's like kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. And then Palmot's there, just sitting there in the middle, just like, hey, kill one of my allies so I can click Revival Blessing, and then you gotta do it all over again. But I really like this team. I think it's a very creative way to put many of these bonds together for sure. But yeah, let's start it with a 10. What do you think?
So first off, if you guys think that this team doesn't have enough support, well, I advise you to look at it again. And excluding Calyrex and the Chi-Yu, this team has double screens. It has Follow Me with Population Bomb with Friend Guard on the Mousehold. In addition to that, they also have the Palmot with Revival Blessing, and like Mismag mentioned, like, what if like either Calyrex or Chi-Yu goes down, you just have to deal with Revival Blessing and it coming back to restart that process again, and just dealing lots of massive amount of damage. In addition with that, like, Screamtail is a really good Paradox Pokemon, I think. Really good defensively, and especially paired up with the Mousel with Friend Guard is just going to be super bulky. Taking advantage of like Trick Room, Helping Hand, like you mentioned. Can also use screens, but Morgram is basically the dedicated screen setter for this team, I feel. And can dish out a decent amount of damage as well, like with Dazzle, Play Rough, has Encore as well. So some very good offensive and supportive options on that. And even like the low tiers, like Hisuian Sligo, like even though it's not the same as its evolution, it's still pretty bulky with the Eviolite, and it can do some things under Trick Room as well. And then I already said my thoughts on Alola Muck in the Violet PRs, so I won't cover it much here. And Ditto's Ditto. It can do anything once it's transformed into another restricted. So, yeah, it's basically the wild card of this team. You just never know what it's going to do once it transforms. So, yeah, overall, really solid team.
But Patmac, let's see what you got to say.
I think a lot of what's been said has already been said. Like, we've talked a lot about the supportive pieces, and I think that's really because the like glaring strength of this team is Chi-Yu and Shadow Rider. Like, I think teams are mostly going to be prepped against that. They're going to try to find, as best they can, some way of dealing with those two Pokemon. And it's going to be difficult, right? Like, we're talking about a Mon that has, like, an insane special attack stat with a very strong spread move with Calyrex Shadow Rider, and a Mon that supports it very well in Chi-Yu, who also deals a ton of extra damage on its own. So I think those two Mons are things that people are going to try to prep against this team the most. And I think because of that, they're like physical Mons, like Rayquaza and Palmot are probably going to shine, along with the population Mon from Mousehold. I think like those three Pokemon are probably going to... I think people are going to prep too much for the special attacking and are going to get a little lost in how to deal with some of these physical attacking options. So I think that there's a good mix of things. We've already talked a lot about the supportive options, and like Mousehold I think is an amazing pick for this team. I think without Mousehold, this team could potentially fall apart a little bit, but having that follow me to protect Calyrex Shadow Rider even is just like absolutely insane. So I think Mousehold's an amazing pick for this team, and I can't believe they waited until like, what is that, round 9 to pick it up. I think like grabbing that early on would have been amazing for the team, but they waited a long time and they were still able to get it. So that's one of those things that's really well done about drafting, is sometimes you can wait to pick up some of those Mons later on, and they just fit so well. So yeah, I think the team looks great.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Sometimes you can afford to wait, but as we saw over in the Violet Division PRS, sometimes you can't. But that is a story for another day.
Another video.
All right. Yes, and another and
A whole
previous
nother video.
All right. Any closing thoughts, or shall we move on to the next team?
Let's take a look at the next one.
Yeah.
All right. Next team is going to be the Chesney Park Slowpokes. I'll actually start this one off. So I circled. This is probably one of the first times I actually circled like one of the restricteds, and I mean Chi's not a restricted. I mean Chi and Pile is not a restricted, but like it's a legendary. Yeah, Zacian, Chi and Pile, that's broken. Adam, you should be ashamed of yourself. Nah, I'm kidding. It's a really strong combo. Like just Sword of Ruin lowering the defensive stuff, plus Zacian getting an Intrepid Sword boost and then just clicking Behemoth Blade, play rough into things. It's just damage. And he shored it up really nicely because most of the rest of the team is either A, a special attacker, or B, it happens to have an ability that more or less negates the want of wanting to bring Intimidate versus the team. Like, you're not going to want to bring Intimidate to try to hack down Zacian's attack stat when there's like Galarian Articuno just gonna casually get a +2 right there. And then the Sableye kind of really also supports this team in a lot of ways by providing screen support, fake out, just alternate forms of speed control with Quash. Yeah, I like this team a lot. I think one of the only things about this team I'm not like super high on is maybe the Avalugg specifically, but I've also like never really used it. Not the Sewing version at least. I've used the regular Avalugg plenty of times. So yeah, I'll turn this one over to Patmac. What do you think?
I think the first couple of picks look really good. Like you already talked about, Zacian Chimpao. Like that's just an amazing way to start off a draft. And I think because of that, once you pick up those as your first couple picks, you start to look for ways to discourage people from being able to prep solely for those Mons. And I think Palkia and Galarian Articuno are like the best things that they could have grabbed afterwards. You get a really strong special attacking Mon, something that can either set or reverse Trick Room with Palkia, another Mon in Galarian Articuno that can kind of do the same thing. You also have the option of like Imprison Trick Room, setting Tailwind of your own, competitive being an amazing ability for it as well. One of the downsides of Galarian Articuno is its coverage, and so having the free Terra on this Mon to kind of switch things up and hit the things that you can't normally hit, I think is a really great option for the team as well. I think there's a lot of overlapping weaknesses on the team, and I think that's probably something that a Praetor should probably consider adjusting. There's like a lot of ground weaknesses on the team, and like you don't really want that many of the same weaknesses when one of those is restricted. So like if neither of the Palkia or Zacian had been ground weak, then I would have said no big deal, right? Like a lot of ground weaknesses, that's not a problem. But when it's one of your restricted, people are going to bring ground type deck set against you anyway. And so like Toxtricity is going to get caught in the crossfire. The Avalugg is going to get caught in the crossfire. And so like I think that you want to try to reduce that to a certain extent. But at the same time, like Sableye Toxtricity is a really solid combo, being able to Boom Burst and get some speed control that way. So I think a lot of the other picks make some sense. But it like I think the number of like overlapping weaknesses with your restricted Mon, like I'd want to try to reduce that as much as you can.
Ted, let's hear it.
All right. Yeah, I think you guys covered pretty much everything, but you left out Slithering. Like, come on, guys. Nah, never mind. Slithering is, I think Slithering is kind of just there. I don't necessarily see it coming into every single match. Like, it sure does have a good pairing with Chien-Pao. But other than that, like you can protect on the first impression turn. There are a lot of good flying Pokemon, so you can take advantage of that. And even like with Terra, like there are plenty other ways to take advantage of that. So out of everything from a Predator's whole team, I think I would probably drop the Slithering and pick up something else to work around those type weaknesses like Pat mentioned, like with the ground weakness. So that's probably my only complaint about his team.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on that, like you have Breloom already. Like, do you need Slitherwing also? I think you just got to pick one, because they're going to fill very similar roles in games, and so pick one, get rid of the other, diversify your team.
Yeah, I'm with you guys 100%. I definitely was thinking the same thing. It's like Breloom, Slitherwing, definitely much of a pick one. If you really want to keep the Slitherwing just to have access to booster energy and whatever unique tools that Slitherwing has options for, then yeah, drop the Breloom for something that can kind of diversify the team. It's kind of funny that like we're talking about how the team is has ground weaknesses as an issue, and like we're suggesting he switch out one of the two things that resist ground. Like,
well, to be honest, like you're not going to bring both those Pokemon to the same game, so like you really like with those two Pokemons, you really only have one ground resist between the two of them, because like unless the team is incredibly weak to like fighting or something like that, you're not bringing both Breloom and Slitherwing to the same game, and so like you might as well just pick one of them. And in that case, like if I'm prepping against this team, I think they have one. Where they have two. They have two ground resistances. They have one Breloom / Slitherwing, and then Galarian Articuno. And like, I don't think that's enough when one of your restricted Mons is weak to ground. Everybody's going to be ground type sets against this team.
It's fair. I actually might be more inclined to keep Slitherwing and trade Breloom for like a cheap grass / bug redirector Rage Powder Mon, just to add some diversity and still keep ground resistance.
Yeah, I don't really care which one it is. I just think they should get rid of one of them.
Alright, so let us move on to the next team. It's going to be the Jersey Venusaurs. Why don't you start us off?
This team looks great. I don't know. First couple of things that I noticed are like Iron Bundle, Arcanine, Zapdos. I think those 30 Mons do a pretty good job of like controlling tempo in the game. They have Frigraph, which I also think does a pretty good job of controlling tempo. So they have like some really good Trick Room. They probably have mostly Trick Room stoppers than setters. I think the team probably wants to stay out of Trick Room for the most part. Dialga Origin could potentially set Trick Room, but most of the team kind of wants to be out of Trick Room, so I think it's more likely that they're playing a fast game than a slow game. The Leafeon pick feels super weird to me. I'm not quite sure what it is on this team, because there's no Sun mode naturally, so we're not making use of Chlorophyll at all. So like at first glance, like that mon seems a little out of place. Pelipper feels a little out of place too, as well. Like it kind of supports like a Hurricane Thunder mode from Zapdos, and that's kind of it, I guess. So like probably those last two pick mons feel a little bit off to me, but the team in the first like 6 or 7 picks looks very strong. I really like Zamazenta for the team. Being able to get another mon, like not getting a second mon like Zamazenta Crown, that would be item locked, I think gives Zamazenta a lot of options in terms of different moves it can go for, which I think is pretty solid. But yeah, they have a like really strong fast mode, and some ways of stopping Trick Room from going up, which I think is really solid. But yeah, those last two picks feel a little off to me, and I'm not quite sure exactly what they would need to do or add to kind of switch that up, or even if Gaz wants to do that. Maybe he's got some ideas for those mods, but just at first glance, they seem out of place.
I do agree with the Zamazenta pick. It is one of the reasons I have it circled. I definitely think if one of your mythical / restricted mods is item locked, I think it is incredibly prudent for you to pick a second one that can flexibly use an item. I'm totally not rubbing against the other Origin for my own week 1 match, so this is just knowledge I just happen to pick up on the fly. But I also really like how it pairs with Howl Arcanine. Like, Zamazenta is going to come in, just get a defense boost. It can generally support this team with like Howl, Snarl, and Wide Guard. Unfortunately, I lost coaching, but you know that's just kind of new gen lifestyle. And then Arcanine with Intimidate just makes the Gauntlet Shield boost that Zamazenta gets like even more potent. So I do like those tools. I kind of think actually that pairing supports a more defensive sort of playstyle with this team, while the rest of the team can like hit for a lot of like big damage, like Zapdos and Dialga, and even Bundle can hit for some pretty strong damage. Berserker with Sealy Spirit and Dialga is just disgusting. I don't know how anybody let that actually happen, but you know, that's your guys' problem, not mine. But I will agree with you that the Leafeon in particular seems pretty like out of place, but maybe, like you said, the coach has plans for these mods. And I'll toss it over to Ted.
Yeah, I think you guys covered pretty much everything. I haven't seen a whole lot, like I mentioned in the Violet PRs, that Diagonal Origin. I haven't seen a whole lot from it. Just really excited to see what it does, especially now you mentioned next to Berserker with Steely Spirit. Being able to boost those steel type attacks is dangerously disgusting, so we'll see what happens with that. And yeah, like Pelipper, like Pat mentioned, like it just seems kind of one-off. Like, yeah, you get the rain to hit those 100% accurate hurricanes, but after that there's not really much other than like Tailwind support. And you don't really need Tailwind as much. Like I feel like the Trick Room answers are pretty nice here. So that's probably something I would look to trade with, but I definitely can see what they want to do with the Zapdos there. And then like Zamazenta, even though it's not the crown form, like not having to use the item for it and just be able to slap on like a Leftovers or a Choice Span or a Choice Scarf, being able to like spam Body Press with that +1 defense is nice. And even setting like an Iron defense with it alongside of that is gonna go a long way without having an item. But yeah, you guys covered everything, and I basically said what I wanted to say.
Okay, cool. Then let us move on to our next team. It's gonna be the Boston Celibies. gonna just jump in real quick and start this one off. So this is literally a team that I guess by definition should be in the Violet division, given that Violet was the game with all of the future Paradox mons, and this team has 3 of them. It is a very strong work drive mode going on here. I have circled Incursion and Valiant. Incursion's pretty obvious, like Electric Terrain really sets up this team for success, gets those Quark Drive boosts going without needing booster energy, and Valiant is just disgusting. It has such an incredibly large pool that makes it almost impossible to prep against, coupled with the fact that it has mixed offenses, and runs mixed sets very, very violently. One of the only downsides of it is somewhat frail, but it is just a fast mixed attacker with a lot of support moves as well. So I think that is a great choice, especially for this team. Iron Jugglerist is great. It's probably my favorite Paradox Pokemon that I've used so far. Can do a lot of things. Very good in rain, very good with tailwinds. Iron Leaves is very hard hitting on the physical side. So yeah, he's definitely got the future mode down packed. Surrounding it though, not loving some of those picks. Palkia Origin is totally fine, as is the Heatran and the Landorus, but it's really the last 2 picks, that low kicks and the Lycanroc I think it's midday form, the one that has Sand Rush, are in particular a little confusing to me. I'm not really sure what place they have on this team. The Oricorio is fine. I mean, honestly, no, not really, because like Jugglerist honestly sets Tailwind like infinitely better than that mon does, other than just the fact that it's a Ghost type and immune to Fake Out. But yeah, I'll toss it over to Pat. What do you think?
I think the team is kind of suffering from like a lot of overlapping stuff, and then it's like I think there's too much reliance on Pincurchin for the team, and not a really lot of ways to support Pincurchin on making the best out of it. Like there's no trick room to help support Pincurchin anyway. Because like I love the mon, I used it in our first restricted league in TGR, and like it did quite a bit of work for me. But at the same time, like the team has a lot of like competition for booster energy, and being item clause, like you only get 1, and then after that, like you need Pincurchin to make these mons really shine. So I'd like to see like maybe some adjustment there. I don't know exactly what I would do. You mentioned a handful of mons that feel out of place, like those kind of low tier 3 mons there between Low Kicks, Lycanroc, and Oricorio. Like they don't feel like they add anything from a prep standpoint that I really need to be scared of. Like I'm mostly kind of looking at like the Paradox mode and Flanders, Heatran, Palkia Origin. So like switching something out, getting another restricted or mythical mon to kind of boost the power level of the team makes a lot of sense to me. And then adding some more like support to the team from low tiers, I think makes a little bit more sense, because you have so much power. You know, like I don't need to prep against Low Kicks when I need to prep against like Iron Leaves and Landorus. I'm not going to prep against Lycanroc when I got to prep against like, again, those same mons. And then Oricorio, like I'm not going to prep against that when I need to prep against like Palkia, Iron Valiant, and like Iron Juggulus. Just because like the amount of damage they're going to put out is going to be way less than those other options, and like it's not really offering more support to the team than what those mons already offer. So I think that like this team feels like it's less than 10 Pokemon, and I think it makes it easier for teams to prep against it.
Alright, Ted, let's hear from you now.
Yeah, I feel like going off from like Pincurchin, I think that ever since like its introduction, I feel like they've just been removing the moves that it can use. This team definitely doesn't have like enough supporting factors with the Pincurchin, and without that, I feel like just by itself, you don't necessarily have to target it down. You can just target something like an Iron Valiant or the Iron Leaves or the Iron Junglist or Heatran, and like once those things go down, the Pincurchin is just by itself and it can't really show too much offensive output. Sure, like it has I forgot the signature move, but it has that. Has other like Sucker Punch and stuff like that, but like with things like without like Scald or or other good moves that it used to have, like it just can't really do much. So I feel like, yeah, like Pat said, like once you take away like something like a little kicks or a Lycanroc, you're just fighting against like a team of 10 Pokemon at best, 9 or 10. Yeah, there's not really much you can really do about that. So probably would like to see something else to support the Pincurchin, and probably a little bit more useful tools other than low kicks and the Lycanroc midday. So yeah, we'll see what they do.
Alright, yeah, I think you guys pretty much covered it, so why don't we move on to our next team, which is going to be the Primordial Leviathan. Patmac, why don't you take us away?
Yeah, so I think that there's some really cool options on the team. Yeah, wow, there's a lot of cool options on the team. Okay, so definitely another Sun team. So I get to chat about another Sun team, this time with Koraidon instead of Groudon. But I like it. I think they picked up a really awesome one to pair along with it with Fluttermane. So you get really fast and strong physical attacks with Koraidon. You get really strong and fast special attacks with Fluttermane. So it makes it pretty difficult to prep against those two. And then they have like a terrain mode with Rillaboom and Drifblim, very common setup from last gen, and those two mons work really well together. You have options of setting up like Fake Out plus Unburden, speed boosted Tailwind, which is pretty solid. There is also a nice option that Drifblim got this gen with Trick Room, so they have a couple of different Trick Room setters between the Hoopa, the Drifblim. I think that's it actually, but both those mons do pretty well at setting Trick Room, I think. And then of course you have some Trick Room sweepers, right? I think Bellibolt can do pretty well in Trick Room. Hoopa of course can do really well in Trick Room. And then some like defensive options in Corviknight, some Intimidate support, or really strong Rockhead. Rockhead, I think that's the name of the ability, boosted moves on the Hisuian Arcanine. And I think that Gastrodon is probably... Gastrodon, I think, is an amazing trick for this team. Whenever you're playing a Sun team, water just in general looks good against you. And so you want to be able to handle water types. So having that Storm Drain ability, I think, is really nice to have. And then, of course, you have Rillaboom to also hit the water types for really good damage. So I think the team overall looks really nice. They have a ton of high power attacking options. They have some good fast modes, some good trick room modes, some setup options. So the team's got a little bit of everything.
You're up.
So going off of what Pat said about the Trick Room, Fluttermane also gets Trick Room. In addition to that, it also gets Imprisoned. So being able to stop Trick Room while also being able to set up with like something like you mentioned, like Drifblim and Hoopa, is really nice. And then like this is gonna probably be a bad take, but I think it's a pretty good take. I think Arcanine Hisui is a little bit better in draft than supposed to regular Arcanine. I just think Rockhead overall is a really good third ability to have, especially like boosting up those Flare Blitz in Sun, boosting or not taking damage from Head Smash is nice, and the same with Wild Charge. So right off the bat, those three moves are a really good set on it, and I'm really excited to see what it does. And of course, it also gets Intimidate, so having Intimidate pressure is really nice. And then Gastrodon being able to help out in that Sun, redirecting those water type attacks are nice, even when Sun is up, is always appreciated. So that's something we probably will see. And then like Rillaboom for the terrain recovery is nice. That nice synergy with the Drifblim is nice. Sending up, like Pat said, with Tailwind after Unburden is procs. So yeah, fairly good options. A few little sneaky options as well that I won't say about because they would probably use it during the season. So we'll see how that goes.
Right, yeah, you guys pretty much said a lot of what I will agree with. My favorite new Pokemon on this team are the Hisuian Arcanine and the Gastrodon. They are literally just a match made in heaven. Gastrodon protects the Hisuian Arcanine from the 4 times weak to water, barring Para, and they also just kind of hit different threats. Gastrodon is weak to grass, and Arcanine just kind of obliterates pretty much most grass mons. Intimidate support is also nice for it, as Gastrodon has, I believe, a weaker defense score than its special defense score. But yeah, the team is very nice. The team is also very cohesive. I think that's the thing I really like about it. Like, I don't see any sort of like really easily to find holes. Like, there are some things I think this team can do that might catch you by surprise, and that'll be up to the coach to decide how they want to rock with it every week. But it's a very nice Sun team, but a Sun team that doesn't just like super scream like chlorophyll spam type of Sun team. And I think I like this sort of Sun balance a lot better than those kind of teams personally. Any other thoughts?
Nope. Sweet team.
All right.
I like it.
Let's move on. We're getting near the end now. This is going to be the Welsh Whalers, coached by our lovely mod Matrix. I will let Ted start this one off. I'm sure he's got a lot to say.
Yeah, big fan of Matrix. Matrix Stan. Hashtag Matrix Stan. All right. Yeah, I really like Arceus. I believe this is the Arceus normal, since it doesn't have the little icon next to it if it's a different typing. So, yeah, I think, yeah, it's just really strong, really strong. Terra normal E speed is really spammable here. Although there's not something like a Chien-Pao or something like that to reduce defense. I still think it's going to do a lot of damage with that Terra normal E speed that we're going to see 100% of the time, if not another typing. So yeah, good to see that. Tinglu, really good supportive piece as well, with the I don't know. I always forget the ability for Tinglu. I know the others, but I always forget Tinglu. But anyways, it lowers the special attack of the opposing side, which the majority of team are pretty specially weak, like the Gyarados, like the Scarlet. So having that ability is really nice. And then the crown form of Zamazenta is really nice, super bulky, really nice to have. Getting that +1 again, like with the other team I mentioned with Zamazenta, like body press with the +1 defense is really spammable. And then Cresselia, another good bulky center for Trick Room. Again, like something like next to like Tinglu or Zamazenta Crowned, or the Enamorous Theria, and it's really nice as well. And like the lower tiers are pretty nice as well. Like Articuno can set up Tailwind if need to be. Has Freeze Dry, which is really rare this generation, I would say. And being a good Terra Pokemon as well, like tearing out of like the electric weakness with Terra Ground is nice. So overall, really good options. I'm really excited to see what Matrix does with this very, very, very bulky team.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm gonna jump in. Yes, that is the Arceus normal type. So in this league, I should say, because I did not explain this in the start of the video, because literally, lo and behold, spoiler alert, all 3 Arceus forms that are legal for this draft are in these last 3 teams. So Arceus were actually put into 3 different groups. Every group had a type, and if you drafted an Arceus form, you had to declare a type, and no one else could draft an Arceus from that. So normal is the only one that has item flexibility, since it does not have a plate. So big ups for Matrix for getting that one. I like it, especially paired with the Enamorous Therian, because not only do they just complement each other, like Enamorous is quad resistant to fighting, which is Arceus' only weakness, but Arceus can just set Trick Room for it, and then it can just start like blowing holes through things because it has a very strong base, I believe 135 special attack, and it is quite slow. So those are definitely my 2 favorite picks for this team, but that's not to say the rest of this team is well supported in the bulk department. I even really like the meta type pick. It's just like a niche little come 1 week, 2 weeks, enable a quick combo, something or another for some of these bulky guys, and then like pick up a game off that. So it's definitely a very well crafted team overall. It even has a really strong disc break mode with the Tinglu and the Rotom Mo. Being that Tinglu does have Vessel of Ruin, which is its ability that lowers the special attack, of all the other Pokemon on the field, I think it is important that he rounded out his draft with a nice amount of physical attackers, and we do see that here. So yeah, I'll turn it over to Patmac.
Yeah, I think Ted mentioned this at the very end of his chat, but he just mentioned bulk. Like, this team has like loads and loads and loads of bulk. All these Pokemon have like very high base stats. We won't count Metatite, but everything else has very high base stats and a lot of defenses. So very difficult to break through the team. And then it also has ways of healing itself too. I think Cresselia really ties the team together with the Lunar Blessing, I think is the name of the move. That can heal both its heal both of itself and its ally, get rid of status boost. So like you can't even try to Will-O-Wisp to burn this team to get rid of some of these physical attackers, because they just remove burns, and then you're kind of back to square one and haven't really done a whole lot. So Cresselia, I think, is probably going to be a very important part of this team throughout the season, to really support the rest of the team. And it just looks good. Like, I think the team overall has a lot of good options. It's got fast modes, it's got slow modes, it's got priority, it's got disruption. Like, I think overall the team looks really nice. There's a lot of options on the team. It's gonna be difficult to prep against.
All right. With that being said, let's get into our second to last team. This is gonna be the Pittsburgh Piplups, coached by Camo Dude. I'm gonna start this one off. So, fun fact, Camo Dude and I have a lot of, if you've seen the Violet PR video, we have a lot of bonds in common. Actually, our first two picks happen to be the same, which was really cool. It's always interesting to see someone take an idea and kind of go in a different direction with it. So this team is very much all about weather abuse, and one of my favorite weather abusing pairs on this team is going to be that Torn and that Vasculegion male. It's just set up Rain Dance, set up Swift Swim, just click moves, and just do lots of damage. Alternatively, you can set up Tailwind instead, and you can have adaptability and still basically achieve the same amount of damage. I just love it. It's just such a painfully difficult mode to crack if you're not prepared for it. And then he's rounded out the team very nicely with some other very hard-hitting mons like the Arceus Poison at the top there, the Typhlosion Sui with Eruption Spam, also part Ghost, so you can't just fake it out. Dialga just hits like a proc. Walking Wake really pairs nicely with Torn as well. And then you even have the Shadow Tag option just to mess up positioning in the sort of the later parts of the game state. But yeah, it's I think it's a solid team. What do you guys think? I'll start with Ted.
Yeah, in addition to like the rainbow, like this team can definitely also take advantage of the sun, especially like when they're going up against like the Groudon team or the Groudon team. Walking Wake, it doesn't necessarily need the rain to boost itself. It can also utilize the sun as well with Hydra's team, which gives it a boost in sun, in addition to photosynthesis. So it's just doing so much damage in the sun, and alternatively, in the rain is still going to do the same amount of damage as well. So I really like that Pokemon. Like I mentioned in going back to the Riley PRs, I did go undefeated with this Pokemon, so I definitely know how strong this this mon can be. So looking forward to see that. And like Dialga and Arceus Poison, I think are two good bulky supporting options as well. Like although this team doesn't really need the TR support, it's there to stop TR, to reset TR, to get out of it. So having that option is really nice. And like Poison Arceus, I haven't seen a whole lot of usage in the past before, too much like in the Uber format, but I think it definitely has its place here as a restricted pairing. It's still gonna hit pretty hard as the normal Arceus, so it's just something to look out for. And I'm gonna mention the lower tiers. Chestnut is really good as well for a supporting piece. Has Wide Guard to stop eruptions. Has Leech Seed, has Spiky Shield, some good supporting options with that. Crocodile is pretty bulky with Eviolite. Eviolite is we're probably going to see it with the Gothorita, but having Eviolite with the Crocodile is really nice. A bulky fire type is always needed, especially if you already have the Suit Typhlosion to dish out eruptions. So I think that's some super great to have. And then Electros having no weaknesses with Levitate and being an electric type is really nice as well. Being able to avoid those ground type attacks for the Dialga and the Arceus Poison is really nice. So overall, I think this team has definitely good supporting pieces, but they also have really hard hitting attackers up in the front. So yeah, we'll see what happens during the season.
All right, and Patmac, why don't you chime us in?
One thing that I don't typically like for restricted or mythical pairings like this is with them sharing a very common or a very strong weakness. So both being weak to ground, I think is a concern. But I think with this particular team, it's really not that big a deal. Like you have double water types that are like fast and hard hitting. You have a very good resistance to Chestnut and immunity with the Electros. So I think that like Kemodu did a very good job of covering for his common weakness of his restricted mons, which in this format typically you're going to bring those every week, and so covering for those weaknesses I think is a really nice option on the team with everything else that the team offers. Like you don't really want to bring a ground type or a Terra ground even against the team, because like now you got to deal with Walking Wake, now you got to deal with Vasca Legion, not to mention some of the defensive options on the team. Resist ground, which I think is really nice. Yeah, I think this is also one of those cases. This might be the only coach I think who drafted a non-restricted or mythical in the first round, and I think that like this is very close to the wheel. The wheel is the next pick right after this, and I think grabbing this after everyone's already drafted their first restricted or mythical mon, I think is really nice, because then on the wheel back or later on you can pick something else that's really high tier. And I don't know how this man managed to get like Arceus Poison and Dialga like later on. Like how did these mons last so long? Dialga's already won a championship in TGR. Arceus has like an insane move pool, and even if Poison isn't necessarily a great offensive type, it's pretty good defensively. And of course you can always tear out of it if you really want to have some other kind of stab boosted coverage, which I mean the mon has such good sets that you don't really need it anyway. So I think he drafted a really good team. Gothorita I think is amazing for this team as well. Like Shadow Tag is going to be so difficult to play against, but yeah, he's got a lot of good options, a lot of good picks, and I think the way he drafted the team is really nice to see as well.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. There is a lot to be said about not only just drafting a good comp, but when to pick up the pieces. And I think that because so many other people went straight for those restricted mythical pairings off the bat, he was really able to capitalize on getting something as flexible and strong as getting that like Hornatus down there at I think he was like pick 13, or no, sorry, we only have 12 coaches. He was literally the pick right before the wheel. He's the second last team, so I think it was just a great sort of drafting style, and then he really capitalized on that with some of those low tier picks. I will just give a small spoiler because we are not taking into account anything that has happened after the grace period, but so he has made some trades, and I think the trades do actually address that point about the sharing of weaknesses with the mythical and restricted duo. So you guys will have to check that out in the TGR server for yourselves. But with that being said, we only have one more team to go. And it's going to be the Sacramento Sandslash, coached by our very own Patmac. I will let Ted start this one off.
Okay, guys. First off, okay, well, he's the owner, so he has all the power. He has it here at the wheel pick. It's obviously rigged. There's no question about it. I'm sorry. It's super unfortunate. But anyways, yeah, this I have no words. What monstrosity had. Okay, Magirna's super strong. Having access to Trick Room as well. Paired up with that, with the Ursaluna, super strong as well. And it doesn't even need Trick Room. Like having Floor Cannon, spamming that up, and getting those special tech drops off of like weak Pokemon with weak defenses is just going to go so far for this team. And I believe that is Arceus Ghost. I could be wrong because I can see the purple. Okay,
You are
so it is
correct.
Arceus Ghost. Yeah, I think Arceus Ghost is pretty good on this team. I think covers a good amount of weaknesses for the other Pokemon. So and is a good offensive typing as well. So being able to utilize that Ghost type is going to go a long way for this team as well. And then like covering like for like the bulky options, like I think the that is the I'm blanking on the name. Well, anyways, I'll come back to it. I think the Rotom is definitely good here for the bulk as well. So some obviously good bulky options to utilize under Trick Room, but also having those strong attackers like Salamence, the Arceus, and the Magearna as well. I think those three together is going to be hard to deal with, especially like combining like and dealing with each other's weaknesses. So yeah, Pat, good job on drafting. You officially made this team really scary. And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll see what happens during the season.
Alright, I'll jump in. Yeah, before you guys talk about it, like, it was a live draw. I did the order live. It was not rigged. We just happened to have Patmac, the owner of the server, at the bottom wheel. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That being said, he did very much take advantage of being at that bottom wheel, and he picked up a fierce duo of restricted mythicals. Like, Arceus Ghost and Magearna is just cracked out stupid levels of power. And also very difficult to disrupt, being that, Arceus, while locked to the ghost type and has to have the spooky plate, like, it's still very difficult to disrupt that. You can't do fake out against it. It's very fast with that base 120 speed, so disrupting it will require very different tools for the most part. I really also love the Stone Journey pick, just like, it just threatens to amp up the damage while also bringing some nice supportive tools to this team, like Wide Guard and Gravity. I think those are all useful for supporting many of the offensive pieces of this team. I also really like the Sneasel Hisui. I had to actually look into it a little bit earlier. Mon is surprisingly very good, especially for its tier. While it does not get the very cracked out Sneasel or Dire Claw, it gets a lot of other useful tools that I believe even the regular Sneasel does not get. So I'm actually really excited to see how you use that piece. But my favorite pairing is actually the Magearna and the Rotom Heat. I love how they complement each other on weaknesses defensively. It's just a great pairing between those two. They're both special attackers, sure, but Rotom can do so many nice debuffing things like Will-O-Wisp, Eerie Impulse, and trick shenanigans, and then just kind of pave the way for Magearna to kind of clean up in the back. But we haven't even touched on the freaking Ursaluna that's just sitting there chilling in between like two really strong mythical restricteds. Like, this is a well-crafted team. Well done, Patmac. What do you have to say for yourself?
I'm just gonna give myself a pat on the back. I feel so good about this team. there's a ton of power. Like, I don't know. I'll probably talk more about like each individual mon a little bit in like a draft introduction video. But like, I think overall, I like what I was able to put together for this. There's like fake out options on the team with the Hisui and Sneasel, which I think is nice to have like a really low tier fake out in the format. There's some redirection options with Group on it. There's multiple Tailwind setters with multiple Trick Room setters. There's spread moves. There's hard hitting offense. There's debuffing. Like, I don't know. I just feel very good about the team. I think that it has a lot of good options. And I think like here's the thing. When I look at this team, I don't want to prep against it. Like, I don't want to play against this team. So that means I feel like I did a pretty good job drafting. So that's where I'm at.
I mean, you heard it here first, folks. Like, the secret to drafting a good team, draft something you don't want to play against.
Yeah,
I guess it really is that simple.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate.
I mean, yeah, now that I think about it, I probably wouldn't want to draft wouldn't want to play against the team I drafted for myself in the other division either. So I like that. I'm gonna keep that. With that being said, oh, actually, I'm gonna circle back to Ted. Did you remember the name of the Pokemon you were trying to remember earlier?
Yeah, it's just Brute Bonnet because
Okay,
Pat said it.
I thought
It's
it might have been that
yeah.
one.
I always blank on like some of like the more obvious Pokemon, and it happens.
No, you're good. Groupon, I think, is a great support option. So many people spend time comparing it to Amoonguss because of similar kit, but just like the extra added offensive presence that Bonnet gives is just really not to be underestimated, with or without Sun synergy at all. All right.
Well, I think for this format, Brute Bonnet and Amoonguss they play very differently. Especially for this league, because we do have a sleep clause. Like with Amoonguss, I think you just try to spore everything you can. But I think when you can only spore one thing, I think Brute Bonnet might be a little bit stronger. The typing is very different, and so Regenerator versus Photosynthesis, they play very differently as well. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure which one necessarily is better per se, but yeah, I'm looking forward to using Brute Bonnet. It's one I kind of wanted to try since Scarlet Violet came out.
All right, and we'll look forward to seeing what you do with it. But with that being said, let's move on to our next slide. So I did my top 5 in a different way. I didn't just list the top 5 best teams. I thought of some very fun superlative categories. So just some things I noticed when I was combing through the teams. So I would say the most destructive pairing definitely got to go to the Toronto Tinkatinks. Yeah, Kyogre, Talonflame, that's pretty disgusting. Like, Kyogre plus many things on Red's team is just not fun. Like, no one wants to deal with Kyogre in general. Just full stop. Public Enemy number 1, I would say this is the team that, like, will probably be the one, like, on everybody's radar for things to prep for, and I think Patmac definitely earned this one because his restricted mythical duo is bordering on unfair. It's probably right under Kyogre in terms of like things I don't really want to deal with if I was in this division. The Dark Horse, who I would say is the team that can really pull off a lot of surprises and may start off a little bit slow, but I think can easily ramp its way all the way up through the regular season and even make a deep playoff run. I think it's going to be the Pittsburgh Pitlups. Camo Dude in general has proven his skill level in that manner as a coach, but the team is just like, it's got a lot of hidden synergies to it that are not just the obvious ones that we discussed here. Highest of the lows is a category I gave to the team that I thought had some of the better low tier picks, and we talked a lot about how the Sneasel on the Flanders team was a really nice pick, so I think it actually lines up nice that you guys happen to agree with that before seeing. And then mid-tier gaming was, I believe, the coach that had like the strongest sort of mid-tiers, and we talked a lot about how Gaz's Farigiraf was a pretty nice piece for his team. So yeah, what do you guys think of these superlative categories? Do you have a different team you might suggest?
I think in general I agree with a lot of the stuff here. The only one I'm not sure is the Dark Horse team, because I feel like Cameron's team is pretty strong. I think he's got a lot of cool options on the team, but I don't know what I would say is the Dark Horse team different than that. So I don't know. I don't have a good like different option, but I actually thought that that Pittsburgh Piplups team looked pretty solid. Yeah.
All right, Ted.
Yeah, I think I agree with the majority of this choosing for each team and for each category. I think I'm just gonna go off like what Pat said. Like the Camudu's team I think it's pretty strong. I don't necessarily think it's a Dark Horse team. And even though like the other teams, like I think every team in this division is really strong. I don't think there's necessarily like a quote unquote Dark Horse team. But I get it. I can definitely see it. I can definitely see him like starting off a little bit slow, but as the season progresses, they start getting into a rhythm with their team, and they start picking up wins and going into playoffs on a high momentum. So yeah, I can definitely see that.
Is there any team that you guys think should be on this list somewhere in this sort of top 5 that was not mentioned?
Oh, jeez. I mean, with these particular categories, I think that you picked up on a lot of the a lot of stuff. Oh, the highest of the lows, I could maybe go to Matrix. I thought the Metatite and the Articuno were kind of nice mons to add to his team. But I'd have to look a lot more to kind of think through the teams with that in mind. But those ones I remember thinking that they were pretty solid. I think with Terra, Articuno becomes a little bit better. And it does have freeze dry, which I think is nice to add to any team. And the Metatite with like skill swapping pure power onto like one of his insanely bulky Pokemon, along with fake out support, I think is kind of cool.
All right. Well,
But I can see honestly why you didn't try to do like a top 5, or even try to rank all the teams in PR in like an order or whatnot. Because like I don't know, we look at all these teams and I would not want to try to rank all of them. Like there's so many strong teams here, and we'd be like splitting so many hairs to try to say like one team is better than another.
yeah, no, incredibly true. So it's difficult, but I like kind of how we tackle it with this sort of like top 5 listing, because every team definitely has value.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, I think we're gonna sign us out. You guys have any last words, closing remarks?
If you haven't already joined the TGR server and you want to follow Mythical Mayhem, definitely do so. We'll for sure have a link down in the description for it. And like this league has been around since the very beginning. When I started this server, we didn't call it Mythical Mayhem back then. We called it just TGR Restricted. But this is the very first type of league we ran here, and we've been running it ever since. And it is like it's a fan favorite. We've had 24 coaches this season. It's always been a ton of people who are interested in the format because it's just so unique, and we have a ton of different other unique formats going on. So if you want to play Pokemon and you want to do it on Wi-Fi, then TGR is the place to do it.
All right. Ted, any closing words?
Even though I'm not participating this season in Mythical Mayhem, I wish everybody good luck throughout the season. I think, like we said, like all of the teams here are super strong. I'm really excited to see the content that's going to come out of this. So, good luck, have fun to everybody, and somebody will be crowned champion by the end of this.
Yes, indeed. Someone will definitely be crowned champion. Well, with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you for the next video. Peace.